So, I am going to read the article of the month for November aloud for those of you who maybe were in class and need to go through it a little more slowly in order to finish the article, or if you miss class and this is the first time you're hearing it, and you do better if you have it read to you. So, again, this is for the theme of movement. And the article is titled Four Major Ways International Trade Has Changed Over the Past 100 Years. So, this article is a little older, but it does match up with our theme of movement. So, here we go. It was written by Bennett O'Brien. The past 100 years have brought about incredible changes in nearly every industry and area of society. International trade is no exception. The way that business is done on a global level is now faster, more efficient, more reliable, and simply better. It's interesting to delve into how international business has evolved, because having a broad understanding of your industry can help provide greater perspective when making important decisions. So, what are the key differences between international trade now and international trade 100 years ago? Number one, better domestic and international transportation. In 1915, rail, ships, horse, and carriage were the main forms of transportation, and the period of the automobile was just beginning. The Ford Model T had only started production 7 years earlier in 1908. Before that, there were less than 200,000 cars on the road. Automobiles were therefore only just beginning to become an option for business travel. Europe's first ever traffic light was constructed at the busy Potsdamer Platz intersection in Berlin in October of 1924. The street around it had not yet been paved, and a police officer had to manually operate the lights from the tower. To further highlight the primitive beginnings of the period of the automobile, the first paved concrete highway wasn't created until 1909. There was a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on most roads. Drivers weren't required to have insurance or pass a driver's test until 1934, and there were no electric traffic lights until 1934. Just imagine trying to drive to an important business meeting on roads with no traffic lights or lines down the middle, filled with uninsured, unlicensed drivers. Yikes! Furthermore, up until 1921, windshield wipers had to be operated manually by continually pulling a lever while driving. Along with personal transportation, the ways in which goods are shipped have been revolutionized over the past century. In 1896, the first truck was invented. It had a 4 horsepower, 2 cylinder engine that could haul 3,300 pounds, and it only traveled 7.5 miles per hour. Today, tractor trailers are continually used to move products around, and they have become an integral part of the shipping industry. Tractor trailers can carry up to 80,000 pounds and can travel over 80 miles per hour, although this isn't advised. In addition to automobiles, planes, trains, and ships have also come a long way since 1915. Up until the late 1890s, many of the ships transporting cargo over long distances were still sail powered. They could take literally weeks to cross the Atlantic and weren't completely replaced until around 1900, after which steam powered ships capable of traveling much faster and carrying far more took over. British workers transporting imported and exported goods to and from ships in 1942 during the Second World War. Many ports today are equipped to handle ships several times larger than any cargo vessel used during this period. Businesses can now move their products and supplies across vast distances at a mere fraction of what it would have cost in the past. There are also newer, better shipping containers, improved ports and cities all over the world, and super tankers that can carry massive amounts of shipping containers, the largest of which can carry over 19,000 standard containers. These developments keep international trade bustling throughout the world. Number two, advancements in communications, logistics, and supply chain technologies. The technological advances that have occurred in the last century have been remarkable. From the internet to the credit card to the barcode scanner to the handheld calculator, incredible inventions made in the last 100 years have completely changed the ways in which business is done. Just imagine trying to complete your trade finances in 1915 without access to a calculator. Well, aren't you glad you don't have to communicate with your overseas business partners via telegram? Because of the internet, it's now possible to communicate instantly with clients 4,000 miles away. You can even see them because of video chatting. Also, documents can be emailed and sent across these distances with just a few clicks. Canadian companies can complete transactions with Chinese companies without ever having to send employees to China. There are also a number of language translation services available, such as Google Translate and iTranslate, to help people understand different languages. Further, because of improvements in navigation, companies can now track shipments through GPS, Global Positioning System satellites. They can watch their products or their supplies travel across oceans via their computers. This would have been completely unfathomable in 1915. Number 3, improved geopolitical relationships are more open trade. In the wake of two world wars and the protectionist measures used to combat the Great Depression of the 1930s, many nations began working more closely to maintain peaceful relations and increase opportunities for international trade. Given that exports have plummeted through the 1930s for many countries, and that many nations have developed wartime embargoes with their enemies, such as the American trade embargo on all of the Axis countries through the Trading with the Enemy Act during World War II, this was definitely a step forward. As a result, many organizations were formed in the 1940s and afterward, such as the United Nations, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, to aid in the process. These international organizations help to settle disputes and keep things balanced in the global marketplace. From the implementation of the Tea Importation Act of 1897 until it was rescinded in 1996, FDA inspectors had to taste small quantities of each batch of imported tea to prove its quality. Not an ideal system if you want to make a next day delivery. So, as the Cold War ended in the late 1980s and early 1990s, many formerly communist nations were also integrated into these organizations, increasing their global scope and the number of trade opportunities available to nations worldwide. The World Bank, for example, has grown from 43 members in 1948 to 188 members today. The WTO has also expanded from the 23 nations that first signed the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs in 1947 and the 123 nations that established the WTO in its present form in 1995 to the 160 members it currently has today. Through war, embargoes and protectionist policies remain a part of the global environment. The work these and other organizations have performed over the past several decades has created a global environment more conducive to free, peaceful, and beneficial international trade. Number 4, increased stability to maximize a company's global potential. Due to the advances in transportation, technology, and geopolitical relations, companies are now able to maximize and expand their potential in ways that wouldn't have been possible in the past. Female workers creating the lids for cans at a high... Whoops, that shouldn't be there. Today, a factory like this is more likely to be in a country like China, Mexico, or India. Today, it's quite common for international companies to have their headquarters in one country, the manufacturing based in another, and then sell their products in many other nations across the world. For example, Apple Inc. has its headquarters in Cupertino, California, but it does a large amount of its manufacturing in China, and it sells its products in countries all over the world, from Australia to Brazil to Switzerland. Because supply lines can be optimized and communication is instantaneous and reliable across vast distances, companies are free to use the resources of different countries to maximize their growth and success. For example, the United States is a massive global market, but many companies choose not to locate their manufacturing there because it has a higher minimum wage and more extensive labor regulations than many of the other nations. So, because of all the developments in international business, companies can now take advantage of what different companies have to offer to increase their profit margin. So, for the article, there are 4 questions. Each question has a number next to it, which you'll find the answer where it's numbered in the reading. So, remember, as you read, you should have highlighted words that you don't understand. You should try to figure out what they don't understand if you're not in class and we weren't able to talk about it. And then you're going to answer these questions at the end on this paper. So, why is international trade important in our world today? It must be at least 2 sentences. Using the article, list at least five innovations or advancements that have helped the movement of goods in our world. You can bullet point these. Number 3, how would the developments discussed in the article help with the movement of ideas in countries, across countries and cultures? And then number 4, which advancement in international trade do you think have the most impact on the world and why? So you're going to go back to number 1 after reading the question and see if you can find a couple of answers to that. You can always use anything you wrote in the margins to kind of help you along with answering that question. And when you're done, you're going to turn it in on Google Classroom.